So I'd like to talk about mental health, but specifically within rural communities, because farmers, so I interview farmers as part of my research every day, and quite often they mention how they do feel demonised and berated, about everything almost, about their practices, about the environment, climate change. Often they feel completely to blame for it. And that is actually having huge impacts on their mental health. Farmer suicide rates are incredibly high. There's at least one suicide a week just in the UK of farmers. So I completely agree, obviously, that we need radical changes in our environment. But how can we do that without causing irreparable damage to our rural communities?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Another very good question. I mean, currently the incentive structure is completely wrong. All the incentives are basically knock 6 kinds of hell out of your land to make as much profit as quickly as you can, because otherwise you're going to be outcompeted. And the subsidy system drives out the small farmers while rewarding the rich farmers. You get paid by the hectare. How insane is this? The more land you own, the more public money you are given. And what this means is it stacks up the economies of scale even more against the small and medium-sized farmers, who are the ones committing suicide. It's not the very rich people who are committing suicide, it's the small people on the receiving end of all that. And it's crazy. But nor is farming meeting our needs, because it's still providing a sort of 1950s diet in this country when our needs have shifted. So those of us who have made the switch to a plant-based diet are having to import most of the food we eat. Britain's actually a really great place for growing pulses. We could grow all sorts of edible pulses here, but we aren't doing so because we're still locked into the old ways of doing things. And, some farmers are slow to change, but also the incentive structure is slow to change. Now, what I've always tried to do is to say, look, there's a lot wrong with farming, but you can't blame the individual farmers for that. Well, some of them actually do behave appallingly, it's true. There's a huge range of practice among farmers. There's some very good ones, there are some very bad ones. And were we to judge farming by the standards we judge any other industry, we would be a lot tighter with the regulations. By far and away, the biggest source of river pollution in Britain now is dairy farming. If there was the same amount of industrial pollution coming from chemicals factories, wiping out the life of our rivers, there'd be riots on the streets, but somehow we give it a free pass. Now, again, I'm not blaming the individual farmers for that. I'm blaming a complete regulatory failure on the part of government. And what that regulatory failure does is to create an uneven playing field, because it basically means that the bad farmers, the people who are prepared to cut corners, the unscrupulous ones, are going to prosper in that situation, whereas the good farmers who are really trying to do the right thing are going to be trampled. And if you know that you're doing the right thing and you're losing as a result, that really can drive you over the edge. I mean, that's a terrible combination to have to deal with cognitively. And so, it's a system, again, that is wrong. And the problem is, you look at the House of Commons, you look even more at the House of Lords, it's governed by huge landowners. Guy Shrubsole's book, published this week, Who Owns England? A fantastic book, crucial book, really beautifully written, by the way, and full of amazing information, shows that, we think we're a modern democracy, but we're still run by the aristocracy. I mean, we really are. They own about a third of England, and then the next tier of these sort of massive, non-aristocratic, but sort of landed gentry type, own at least another 20% or so. And I think it's like 25,000 people own half of England. It's quite astonishing. Something is seriously wrong here, and these people are massively overrepresented in Parliament. There are MPs with tens of thousands of acres of land. There are lords with even more, who have a hereditary right to sit in judgment over the rest of us. The whole system is crocked. So it's the system that we have to change.